Gather round, friends, and lend an ear to the embers of the unexplained. Percy Hawthorne here, your guide through the dusty archives of the extraordinary. Tonight's file, pulled from the shelves marked the Oregon-coated sky, crackles with volcanic steam, ancient secrets etched in stone, and a desperate race against an eruption foretold by lights not of this earth. Stoke the fire, pour something strong, and let us descend into the caldera. The air above Crater Lake held a clarity, so profound it felt like looking through polished crystal. 7,700 years after Mount Mazama's cataclysmic collapse birthed this sapphire abyss. The water reflected the vast Oregon sky with an almost painful purity. Gabriel Sterling stood at the rim, not merely admiring the view, but feeling it, a low thrum, like a struck tuning fork buried deep within the earth, vibrated through the soles of his boots, resonating in his bones. It wasn't just geological. It carried an unsettling psychic weight, a dissonant chord beneath the lake's serene surface. Gabe, you doing that statue impression again? Because if you are, it's a good one. Very brooding scholar contemplating the void. Points for authenticity. Milo Hart materialized beside him, holding 2 paper cups of steaming coffee acquired from gods nowhere this deep in the park. He shoved one into Gabriel's hand. Drink. You skipped breakfast pondering those fuzzy satellite images scientific horizon sent. Fuzzy images plus empty stomach equals grumpy Gabriel. And nobody wants grumpy Gabriel before lunch. Gabriel accepted the coffee, the warmth a welcome counterpoint to the internal chill the lake emanated. Not grumpy, Milo. Apprehensive. The thermal readings from last month weren't just anomalies. Something is stirring down there. He gestured towards the impossibly blue water. And it feels watched. Milo took a loud slurp of his coffee, unfazed. Watched? By whom? The ghost of the last guy who tried to swim across? Or maybe old man Mazama himself, having a grumpy morning? He followed Gabriel's gaze across the caldera. Though, gotta admit, it is extra sparkly today. Like someone dumped glitter in the thermals. That's when the sky began to paint itself. Not clouds, not birds. 3 sleek, obsidian shapes, utterly silent and moving with impossible precision, appeared high above the lake. They moved in perfect, geometric formation, diving toward the surface. As they skimmed the water near Wizard Island, where faint plumes of volcanic steam always curl from fumaroles, something extraordinary happened. From their undersides, beams of pure, coherent light, emerald green, cerulean blue, and deep crimson, lanced out, not at the steam, but through it, where the light interacted with the billowing vapor. Complex, glowing sigils materialized. They weren't static. They shimmered, pulsed, and reconfigured as the craft banked and weaved, etching ephemeral glyphs hundreds of feet tall against the backdrop of the caldera wall. Geometric lattices, spiraling fractals, and angular symbols that hurt the eyes to focus on for too long hung in the air, burning with an inner light before dissolving as the steam dispersed. Whoa! Milo breathed, his usual flippancy vaporized. His eyes darted, absorbing every curve, every intersection, every fleeting detail of the sigils. That's not standard issue Air Force, is it? Or, any Air Force. Gabriel stood transfixed, but not by the visual spectacle alone. A wave of pure, alien intent washed over him, carried on the light and the disrupted air. It wasn't hostile, not exactly. It was urgent, desperately, overwhelmingly urgent. And beneath that urgency, a profound, ancient sadness, like the echo of a dying star. He felt the pressure of it in his chest, a physical weight. Warning, he whispered, the word tasting like cold iron on his tongue. It's a warning, and it's old, ancient. The crafts finished their silent ballet, the last sigil, a complex, interlocking spiral, hanging for a moment longer before fading. Then, as silently as they appeared, they arrowed upwards, vanishing into clear blue as if swallowed by the sky itself. Below, the lake water, disturbed by their passage or something deeper, began to churn more vigorously near the steam vents. Okay, Milo said, snapping out his awe, the practical spark igniting. Ancient warning. Boiling lake. Silent black triangles doing sky graffiti. Standard Tuesday. What's step one, Professor? Besides notifying Scientific Horizons that their thermal anomaly just got a PhD in weird. Gabriel's mind, the cryptologic engine, was already whirring. The sigils, they weren't random. They had structure, syntax, a language, but it was unlike anything in his vast mental databases. We need context, he said, turning away from the rim, the sense of urgency now his own. This place, Mazama, it's been sacred for millennia. If they've been here before, if this warning is ancient, there might be a record, a key, petroglyphs. Milo guessed instantly, his photographic memory already flipping through images of indigenous rock art from the Pacific Northwest. The Klamath tribes of stories, lots of fire and mountain spirits. Exactly. We need to find the oldest sites, the ones closest to the original cataclysm. Gabriel started striding towards the trailhead, leading down into the caldera. The empathic echo of the alien message, a cold knot in his gut. The lake behind them burbled louder, a large bubble breaking the surface with a thick glop. Their descent was swift, Gabriel moving with the sure-footedness of someone deeply attuned to the terrain, sensing the subtle tremors underfoot, the slight shifts in the wind, carrying whispers of heat from below. Milo scrambled beside him, less graceful but agile, his eyes constantly scanning the cliff faces. Over there, he pointed suddenly, veering off the main trail toward a cluster of lichen-covered boulders partially obscured by manzanita. Saw it in a park brochure. Painted hills panel, supposedly pre-Mazama. They pushed through the scratchy brush. The rock face was weathered, but the carvings were still clear. Concentric circles representing the lake, stylized figures with upraised arms, and most prominently, a series of intricate geometric patterns near the top. Gabriel approached, his hand hovering inches from the cold stone. He closed his eyes, letting his empathic sense flow outward. Images flooded him. Klamath shamans chanting under a star-filled sky, the ground trembling violently, an overwhelming sense of awe and terror as lights descended during the eruption, etching symbols in the ash-filled air. And beneath it all, the same profound, ancient sadness he'd felt from the sigils. This wasn't just a record. It was a map, a desperate attempt to preserve a message delivered during the original disaster. Milo. Gabriel breathed, eyes snapping open, alight with understanding. It is a map, but not a geography. A map of frequency, of resonance. These patterns. He traced the carved lines, his cryptologic mind aligning them with the ephemeral sigils he'd just witnessed. They correspond to the harmonic structure of the alien glyphs. They're showing how the message was anchored, how it interacts with the volcanic energy here. It a Rosetta Stone for light and steam. Milo was already sketching furiously in a small notebook, replicating the petroglyph patterns with perfect accuracy. So the ancients saw the light show during the Big Bang, tried to copy it down, and now the same teachers are back giving a repeat performance because pop quiz time. He glanced nervously back toward the lake. The churning was more widespread now, and a faint, sulphurous tang hung in the air, and the lake's looking distinctly unimpressed with the lecture. Before Gabriel could respond, a sharp voice cut through the stillness. Hold it right there. Park property. Hands where I can see them. A park ranger, early 50s, face set in stern lines beneath his broad-brimmed hat, stood on the trail above them, one hand resting pointedly on his holstered radio. His name tag read Ranger Vance. His eyes, sharp and suspicious, darted from their expensive gear, courtesy of Scientific Horizons, to Milo's quick-shut notebook, to the ancient petroglyphs. What exactly are you two doing off-trail? This area is protected. Gabriel felt the ranger's emotional signature like a blast of heat. Suspicion hardened into conviction, fueled by recent vandalism reports and a deep-seated protectiveness for the park. Vance genuinely believed they were up to no good, eco-terrorists, artifact thieves, something destructive. Milo, however, didn't miss a beat. He spun around, a look of exaggerated relief washing over his face. Ranger, thank goodness. We were just about to radio for help. He gestured wildly back toward the lake. Did you see that? Those drones. Or whatever they were buzzing the lake, right near the steam vents. Looked like some kind of industrial espionage thing. Maybe sampling the geothermal activity? Totally illegal. We were trying to get a better look, maybe snap some pics for evidence when we stumbled on this. He pointed vaguely at the petroglyphs, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. But this looks ancient, sir. Vulnerable. We were worried those drone jockeys might have damaged it. Ranger Vance's stern expression faltered slightly. He had seen the strange lights, though he dismissed them as experimental military craft. Milo's rapid-fire delivery, the plausible concern for the petroglyphs, the sheer conviction in his voice. It created just enough doubt. Drones. Vance frowned, his hand easing slightly off the radio. You get a license plate? Company logo? Too fast, too high. Milo shook his head mournfully. Black triangles. Silent as ghosts. Scary stuff. Probably some tech giant trying to steal Oregon's sweet volcanic secrets, right, Gabe? He nudged Gabriel. Gabriel seized the opening Milo's improv had created, layering his own quiet sincerity on top. Ranger Vance, we apologize for leaving the trail. We were alarmed by the aircraft's proximity to sensitive thermal areas and cultural sites. My colleague is right. We fear potential damage or interference. He projected calm concern, subtly amplifying the genuine protective instinct he sensed in Vance beneath the suspicion. Perhaps you could advise? Should we report the sighting formally? Vance hesitated, looking from the earnest-looking Gabriel to the nervously concerned Milo, then back towards the increasingly agitated lake. The water near Wizard Island was visibly bubbling now, sending small geysers of steam several feet into the air. A low, subterranean groan vibrated through the ground. All right, Vance said, his voice tight with new worry that overshadowed his suspicion. You too, back on the main trail. Now, head toward the Rim Village. I need to call this in. The lake activity is unusual. He unclipped his radio, his attention now firmly on the potential geological threat. This is Vance. I've got significant thermal disturbance at Wizard Island and a report of unauthorized aircraft. Milo shot Gabriel a look that screamed go. Now, they didn't need telling twice. They scrambled back onto the trail, leaving Vance preoccupied with his radio and the boiling lake. As soon as they were out of sight around a bend, Milo grabbed Gabriel's arm. Okay, distraction successful. 10 points to Milo. But that lake is seriously freaking out, Gabe. My gut is doing the Macarena. Bad news salsa. We gotta crack that code like yesterday. Back at their rented cabin near Rim Village, they spread out. Milo transcribed his sketch of the petroglyph patterns onto a large sheet of paper with uncanny accuracy. Gabriel, meanwhile, closed his eyes, accessing his perfect memory of the glowing sigils, their shapes, their sequences, the way they pulsed and changed. He began overlaying the petroglyph map onto the sigil sequences, searching for resonant frequencies, harmonic alignments. The petroglyphs weren't letters. They were instructions, tuning forks for perception. It's not just a warning that, Gabriel murmured, his fingers tracing invisible lines in the air. It's a warning about the patterns. They indicate a feedback loop. The volcanic energy here, the geothermal activity. It's not just background noise. It's the power source of message. But it's also the trigger. Trigger for what? Milo asked, pacing nervously. The cabin windows rattled softly with another subterranean tremor. Outside, the afternoon light was taking on an ominous, coppery hue as more steam billowed from the lake. The original collapse, Gabriel said, his voice grim. The message was anchored here millennia ago, using the volcanic resonance. But it's a live circuit. The increased activity now, it's not just natural. Those craft weren't just repeating the message. They were amplifying it, pouring energy back into the system. They're trying to ensure it's heard, but... He slammed his fist softly on the table. They don't understand the instability. Or maybe they do, and the warning is because of it. The amplification is overloading the anchor point, the caldera rim. It's becoming critically unstable. The message itself is becoming the detonator. Milo stared at him, the color draining from his face. So let me get this straight. The aliens dropped by during the Apocalypse Party 7,700 years ago leave a big danger. Volcano sign written in skylight. The locals carve a how to read the sign manual on a rock. Then the aliens come back today and crank the sign's volume up to 11, which is basically tap dancing on the big red button marked blow up the mountain again. Essentially, Gabriel confirmed, the empathic truth of it cold and hard within him. The sadness he felt wasn't just ancient, it was current. The aliens were desperate, trying to warn, but their method was catastrophic. We need the full message. The Petroglyph map gives us the decryption key, but we only saw a part of the sequence. We need the entire warning to understand how to stop the feedback loop, or at least predict the epicenter of the failure. Right. So we need another light show, preferably before the whole rim decides to redecorate Oregon. Milo peered out the window. The lake was a churning cauldron now. Parked vehicles were speeding along the rim road, and the distant wail of the siren echoed. Ranger Vance had clearly gotten someone's attention. Getting up close and personal with the steam vents might be tricky now. Part's going to be crawling. Gabriel stood, a plan crystallizing. We don't need the vents. We need the resonance. The petroglyphs map the frequency nodes. The highest concentration, the primary anchor. He pointed toward his own sketch, where the petroglyph patterns converged most densely. It's not on the shore. It's under the lake, near the central vent complex. But we can access the harmonic signature from above. We need to be at the precise point on the rim opposite that node when, if they return, big if Gabe, Milo said, stuffing energy bars and water bottles into a backpack. What if they got the memo the first time and booked it? They'll be back, Gabriel stated with quiet certainty. The empathic echo wasn't fading. It was intensifying, a beacon of desperate intent pulling toward the caldera. They need confirmation it's been received. Or they need to deliver the final piece. The countdown. Another tremor shook the cabin. Stronger this time. Dust sifted from the rafters. Navigating the rim road was chaos. Rangers were setting up roadblocks, trying to evacuate the few remaining late-season tourists. News vans were jockeying for position near the visitor center. Gabriel drove with focused calm, using his attunement to sense the tremor's paths, finding the least obstructed routes. Milo navigated, his photographic memory providing perfect recall of the park layout, suggesting back trails and overlooks. They abandoned the car a mile from calculated node point, a secluded promontory overlooking the deepest, most violently churning part of the lake. The air thrummed with released energy. The water wasn't just boiling. It was seething, throwing up plumes of superheated steam that rose like spectral towers. The sulfur smell was overpowering. The ground vibrated almost constantly. This is it, Gabriel whispered, setting up a high-sensitivity audio recorder and a spectrometer linked to his laptop. Tools to capture not just light, but the resonant frequencies. Milo scanned the coppery sky, his cosmic intuition screaming like a fire alarm. They're coming, soon, and it feels final. They didn't have to wait long. As the sun dipped towards the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows across the turbulent water, the obsidian crafts reappeared. Not 3 this time. 5. They moved with even greater urgency, diving lower, their light beams stabbing into massive steam plumes with intense, focused energy. The sigils they painted were larger, more complex, and flickered with unstable power. Crimson warnings flared amidst the emerald and blue lattices. Gabriel's equipment whirred, capturing the intricate light patterns and the subsonic vibrations shaking the rock beneath them. "Gabe, look." Milo pointed, not at the sigils, but at the caldera rim across from them. A section near Discovery Point was visibly bulging, cracking, shedding rocks into the water below. "It's starting." Gabriel ignored the terrifying spectacle, his entire being focused on the decryption. The petroglyph map glowed on his screen. He fed the new sigil data in, aligning frequencies, matching harmonic pulses. The alien syntax began to resolve, not into words, but into concepts, directives, a schematic of energy flow. He felt the truth of it resonate within him, the empathic echo merging with the decoded data. "It's not just a warning of eruption," he said, his voice strained with effort and dread. "It's a containment protocol. The original message was a stabilization lock. using the volcanic energy to reinforce the caldera structure after the collapse. But the lock is degrading. The amplification, it's not just overloading it, it's reversing it, turning the containment field into a pressure cooker. He typed frantically, the screen displaying a cascading series of failures mapped onto the lake's geology. The focal point of the failure, the rupture, he looked up, his eyes locking onto the bulging section near Discovery Point. It is exactly there. It's going to blow catastrophically within the hour. And when it does, it won't just be a landslide. It'll be a directed energy release, fueled by the overloaded alien harmonics. It'll vaporize everything on that side of the rim and trigger a tsunami in the lake that will scour the opposite shore. Milo stared at the apocalyptic prediction. Okay, so how do we stop the world's worst pressure cooker? Gabriel zoomed in on a section of the decoded schematic, a small counterfrequency sequence, almost an afterthought in the alien code. There's a dampener, a harmonic canceling pulse, but it has to be delivered inside the resonance field, at the source node, under the lake. Milo followed his gaze to the seething maelstrom directly below their promontory. You mean down there? In that? He swallowed hard. Right. Barista turned deep-sea demolition expert. Why not? What's the pulse? Gabriel was already interfacing his laptop with a ruggedized, waterproof transducer from his kit. Standard issue for underwater acoustic research. I can generate the frequency sequence, but it needs a carrier wave strong enough to penetrate the interference, strong enough to momentarily disrupt the feedback loop before it detonates. He looked at Milo, the unspoken question hanging in the sulphurous air. Milo met his gaze. He didn't have Gabriel's attunement or his code-breaking genius, but he had absolute trust, and his gut, screaming though it was, told him this was the only play. He also had perfect recall. He remembered the exact resonant frequency of the original stable containment lock, buried within the Petroglyph map and the first set of sigils. "Give me the box," he said, holding out his hand for the transducer. "I know the tune. I just need to sing it into the volcano's ear. Really, really loudly." There was no time for debate. Gabriel programmed the dampener pulse sequence, but left the carrier wave input open. Milo would have to manually generate it, matching the ancient stable frequency from memory. They secured the transducer to Milo's back, connected via a fiber optic cable to Gabriel's laptop on the rim. Gabriel handed Milo a compact rebreather unit. 2 minutes, Milo. Trigger the pulse the second you hit the node depth. Then get out. The dampener should create a brief window of stability, maybe long enough for the overload to dissipate, or for us to evacuate the rim. 2 minutes. Got it. Try not to let the mountain eat my coffee. Milo gave a shaky grin, then without hesitation, scrambled over the edge of the promontory, finding handholds on the steep, crumbling rock face, descending towards a violently steaming water. Gabriel watched him go, a knot of fear tightening his chest, almost eclipsing the empathic dread from the caldera. He focused on the laptop, monitoring Milo's descent via depth sensors on the transducer, watching the chaotic energy readings from a node. The bulge across the lake groaned, spitting boulders like rotten teeth. The alien craft circled higher now, their light strobing erratically, as if sensing the imminent failure. Milo hit the water. The heat was intense even through his wetsuit. Bubbles the size of cars erupted around him. He kicked hard, following the directional signal from the transducer, diving deeper into the murky, churning chaos. The pressure mounted. The sound was overwhelming, a roaring, grinding cacophony. His cosmic intuition shrieked, a physical pain behind his eyes. Down, further, left. He adjusted, swimming with desperate strength. The water glowed with trapped geothermal light. He saw it, a fissure in the lake floor, pulsing with angry red energy, the source node. He braced himself against the current, fumbling for the transducer's manual trigger. Above, on the rim, Gabriel saw the depth stabilize. Milo was at the node. He watched the energy spike on his screen, a screaming crescendo. The bulge across the lake lurched outward several feet. Rocks cascaded in a deafening roar. "Now, Milo! Now!" Gabriel yelled, though he knew Milo couldn't hear him. Below, Milo felt the transducer vibrate, signaling it was receiving the dampener sequence. He closed his eyes, blocking out the hellish noise and pressure, accessing the perfect memory of the stable harmonic, the ancient song of containment. He focused every ounce of his being, his cosmic intuition not warning now, but guiding his internal pitch. He hummed, a low, pure, resonant tone, matching the frequency buried in the petroglyphs and the first, calm sigils. He fed that tone into the transducer's microphone, amplifying through the device, directly into the pulsing node. The effect was instantaneous, but not what anyone expected. The angry red glow from the fissure didn't just dampen. It flared violently, then shifted, cycling through colors before settling into a deep, stable indigo. The chaotic vibrations in the water ceased abruptly. The roaring diminished to a gurgle. Above, the alien craft stopped their erratic circling. Their lights pulsed once, in unison, a deep, resonant blue that echoed Milo's tone, then winked out. They vanished. On the rim, Gabriel watched in stunned disbelief as the energy readings on his screen plummeted from critical to baseline. The groaning from the bulging section ceased. The violent churning of the lake calmed rapidly, the massive steam plumes collapsing back into mere wisps. The intense pressure in his chest, the empathic dread, lifted like a physical weight, replaced by a profound, echoing silence and relief. Moments later, Milo broke the surface, gasping, sputtering, but alive. He clawed his way back onto the rocks at the base of the promontory, looking up at Gabriel with wide, incredulous eyes. Did it work? Or did I just serenade a volcano into taking a nap? Gabriel scrambled down to help him up, the ghost of a smile touching his lips for the first time in days. You didn't just dampen it, Milo. You recalibrated it. You sang it back to sleep, back to its original, stable frequency. He looked out at the caldera. The lake was settling, the coppery light fading to twilight blue. The bulge remained cracked and precarious, but inert. The immediate cataclysm was averted. The dampener pulse, it wasn't just a stopgap, combined with the original resonant frequency you generated. It restored the containment lock. The aliens, I think they recognized it. They saw the lock was reinstated. Milo collapsed onto the rock, breathing heavily, staring at the now placid water, reflecting the first stars. So, the warning was actually the off-switch manual, and I just happened to know the secret handshake. More like the secret lullaby, Gabriel said quietly, sitting beside him, feeling the exhausted thrum of the stabilized earth beneath them. The ancient sadness was still there, lingering in the stones, but overlaid now with a fragile sense of peace. The ledger on this particular strangeness closes for now. And so, the ledger on this particular strangeness closes for now. Crater Lake still holds its sapphire mystery, its rim scarred beholding. Gabriel Sterling transcribed the alien harmonics, a lullaby for sleeping giants, filed under Handle with Care. Milo Hart, unsurprisingly, wrote a surprisingly catchy folk song about singing to volcanoes, though he wisely omits the near-death experience. Ranger Vance received an official commendation for his vigilance during the unprecedented geothermal event, though he still gave the occasional suspicious glance to expensive gear near the petroglyphs. Remember, the world hums with more mysteries than answers. Keep your eyes open, your mind curious, and perhaps carry a spare coffee for a friend facing down the abyss. This is Percy Hawthorne, reminding you, the archive is never truly complete. Good night.